One. All right, welcome back to another episode of Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff and Matt, or Matty Snacks. At some point, he'll tell us what that's all about. But welcome back. We are, it's almost Christmas morning. We are about a week away from who we're going to unwrap underneath our Christmas trees, the Eagles' first pick in the draft. I think there's only one round. We haven't really talked about what I'm going to do, but what I'd like to do, depending on your time, is these won't be long episodes, but certainly at the end of round one, maybe, jump on after the pick and just give our quick thoughts. If you're not around Matt, it'll be just me. Matt, if you're able to jump on, we'll do it that way. Maybe a quick 15-minute blurb just about the pick. And then, of course, we got rounds 2 and 3 on Friday, and then the weekend for the others. We'll probably focus on maybe the 2 and 3. Maybe we'll get together quick for that one as well. And then we'll just do a total wrap after the draft and talk about the picks. That's kind of what I'm planning on doing. But another note is next week we will have both Johnny and Evan, the Commander fans, come in and talk about the draft as well from the Washington perspective. Plus, these guys know and they follow college. I'll call myself college football. They follow college football a lot more than I do.
This is a football show.
Football show. I can't even use March Madness as an excuse this time.
We are going to see some dinosaurs on this dinosaur tour, right?
That's the second Jeff Goldblum quote that I've used when I found out about the dire wolves. I'm like, didn't we learn about not messing with science like this from Jurassic Park, folks?
Right. Like, why not invent the alien from the movie Aliens?
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, like, out of all the animals, like, bring back the dodo bird. He had no problem going extinct and was harmless. Like, work on him first. Dire wolves? I don't get it. I digress.
Anyway, all right. So just some housekeeping. I wanted to mention this last week, and I kind of gave an idea that we're changing things up. So for those of you who have been loyal listeners of mine, first of all, thank you very much. When I say mine, initially the show started off Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff. It's now morphed into Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff and Matt since we went to YouTube, certainly. But Matt was a frequent guest on the show when I started it audibly on all the podcast platforms. So that is changing, only in the fact that it's not like we're not going to air any longer. I'm still going to keep the shows on those platforms, but the archive are going away. So all the 200 and whatever shows, unfortunately, I'm not able to keep them because they want to charge me $100 for that. And I'd like to keep them. I'm only going to keep certain ones, like my first launch episode, every single draft recap episode. I'm going to try to keep Super Bowl recap, keep those episodes, but everything else is going to be wiped out. Okay. So, but YouTube, you'll have those since we started on YouTube. Those will continue to be archived. Or any of those long-termers. And by the way, this is the week. This is just totally ironic. It's the week of my fourth, I could say our fourth, but collectively, 4th year. I thought it was my 3rd year. 4 years this week, I started this podcast. So I wanted to get all that way. So again, the only thing that's going to change is if anyone wants to go back, and I'm going to have to stop referencing, hey, I was right. Go back and listen to such and such episode when I talked about, I can't do that anymore because it's all going to be gone, except for the ones on YouTube. Anything on YouTube will stay. So ever since Matt and I got together and started this YouTube channel, those will remain. The Spotify's and all those shows are going to be gone, except for the ones I'm going to choose to keep because I only have limited space now. All right, that's out of the way.
4 years might be a record for no producer on the show.
Well, hey, we need more subscribers. So that's when you guys come in. Like, subscribe, share, do all that. All right. You're not going to get better source insider information. Well, you may get better insider information, but you won't get better insider unbiased information than right here on this show. And again, if you want to see how many predictions we were right about, or any calls we made, or any strategies we talked about in games, or any of that, catch those archives now because we'll be gone within a couple of days. So with that being said, Matt, what are your thoughts on how he spoke? You know, he did his pre-draft. You're never going to get a lot out of him, understandably. He's not going to say, yeah, we're going to focus on defensive tackle in this draft, and we're going to move up, and we're going to move down. So you're not going to get that, but you could still read between the lines. And we got to know Howie over the years. We kind of know how he thinks and all that. So him and Sirianni spoke gave a little bit of a press conference yesterday. Any thoughts that you have on that? And then we're going to get into who Matt and I are targeting.
Yeah, I thought it was very honest and revealing, actually. Like, if you're like, I just don't understand for some of these teams that struggle for like decades and can't figure out why they're not doing things the right way. I thought all you had to do was listen to Howie's press conference today, and he basically covered all things for that. Like, they used to draft and they used to chase players, right? That's how we got the linebacker from Louisville, Marcus Smith, who didn't play it down. Leonard Renfro. They used to be like, oh, we have a need. We lost Reggie White. Let's just draft the first defensive lineman off the board and call him a defensive end. And you're like, no. And Howie, so there's a couple things. That was the first thing that stood out to me. Howie's like, well, we have our needs and we have all these things, but we're going to take the highest caliber player that's available wherever we decide to pick. And if the value's good and it's offered in a trade that we feel is worth that caliber of the player, well, then we make a move. But otherwise, we're looking for high quality people and high caliber players. And that's it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a good thing. But then he says, to back that up, he's like, well, we have our scouts, just information gathering. Like, they're doing that every day. They're doing it right now. They're doing it as I speak. They did it yesterday. They're going to do it tomorrow. They're probably doing it at midnight tonight. And they're collecting all the information to make sure that when they analyze a player, it's not just like stats that end up in magazines, like the sources that we use as kind of outsiders, but they know their people. Like, they do a great job. We talked about it before with their scouting staff. They know the player that they're going to get, and they've really crushed it the last 3 years, right? This
is their Super Bowl. All those scouts on the Eagles that they hire. This is when they make their money. This is their Super Bowl.
Yeah, and he was asked one question. He's like, well, so what are your intentions in the draft and stuff? And Howie's like, we don't really have any. We have all of our prep done. We have all of our information gathering done. And if the phone call comes in, we're ready to move if the value is high enough, and that might make us trade out of the player. But the other thing I thought that was interesting that he said was, we think about the worst case scenario and we think about that first. And then we go up from there. We work our way down from there. So if somebody falls to us, absolutely, we'll take them because we had our worst case scenario in plan. And maybe we were planning on trading down, or maybe we were planning on trading up, but giving away some value. So they're going with their worst case scenario to fill their needs. And I'm like, I don't think a lot of teams even think about that mindset first. Like, go with the worst possible. Like, what is the floor? Where's the floor at for where you're going to draft? I think a lot of teams and a lot of GMs cave and buckle under the pressure of having to get it right. And I think the last thing I'll say about that interview was, it's clear the structure that Jeffrey Lurie has built is rock solid. It's like Howie can make whatever moves he wants to because he's got the trust of Jeff Lurie. Jeff Lurie demonstrates that trust in him every day. He doesn't have him wondering if he's going to have a job. He's not staring over his shoulder like, Jerry Jones doesn't stare over anybody's shoulders. He makes everybody answer to him. Yeah. But all of that trust is why that organization runs well, and that's why Howie is as good as how he is. And I'm just like, I watch these organizations suffer, and I'm like, all you have to do is watch the Eagles. When you had Bill Walsh's 49ers, Gil Brandt's Cowboys, like the teams that became great or successful after that were teams that modeled those teams, because it was still a successful model for probably the next decade until things change again. And then you model that team, So that was very interesting. I thought it was very telling. And Howie's very open and honest, I thought. He's not going to give away the nitty-gritty details of who they're actually targeting and who they would like to get. He's not going to share the draft board, but his whole philosophy, he spelled the whole thing out. So if these other teams missed it, have fun staying in the basement just another few more years. So,
yeah. No, I'm not going to add much to that. I'm pretty much my thoughts exactly. I mentioned last episode how the Eagles have an advantage because Howie is in a place where he can take a risk and not worry about being fired. A lot of GMs aren't at that level with their owners because they're either brand new, not established, or on thin ice to begin with. Howie doesn't worry about that. If he wants to take a risk, I'm sure he talks it over with Lurie. But Lurie trusts in Howie quite a bit. You get those behind the scenes we've seen over the last few years. of the Eagles in the draft war room and how they are all coordinated and it's all a team effort and all the scouts are involved and how he's obviously the quarterback, managing. But yeah, he's just and he's been striking ever since the Rager pick. Really,
he's been crushing it since Rager.
Exactly. He has more than made up for it since that draft. He's been hitting on a lot of these picks, and so that's why the Eagles were able to move on from some of these higher end ticket guys. They didn't have to spend a fortune and try to keep him here and be strapped cap wise for the future by being forced to lock in Williams, who nobody wanted to lose, but we have depth there. We don't know if it's yet proven, but we think we're pretty confident in these guys that are going to be replacing our departed Brandon Grahams and Sweat and all those guys. Slay. It's a lot of leadership the Eagles are losing. So, all right. The other thing that you pointed out that I agreed with was, the other thing I want to mention was how Sirianni also was like, they're in sync. Like, it was a part of the conference when they're like, how he even said, he's like, I know which players this guy's, he kind of was like kidding. I know which players he doesn't like and vice versa or something like that. And so that was kind of good too. So there's some chemistry there with the coach and GM also, which has never been, which isn't always the case, I should say, across the league. Some coaches always want to go one direction, end up battling with the GM, and then they end up taking a pick that doesn't end up fitting in. So those type of things, the Eagles have an edge over other teams is what our point is. And so, all right.
But they deal, and it's not like Howie and Nick agree on everything. And it's not like Howie and Geoff agree on everything or Nick and Geoff agree on everything, but they always deal with it professionally. Like, and that's one thing, like I see it more and more in everything these days. Like you cannot work with people unless you're willing to respect them and then treat them professionally. And then if people don't get their way, they just tend to get angry and resent the other person. And that's what's happening in these other organizations that are never going to be successful. They are operating with principles of resentment first, and they don't even realize it. They're just like, oh, well, this guy's right because he got lucky and drafted somebody. So they hang on to him for 3 years and they destroy the team because they actually don't care to hear anybody's opinion. Hello, Jerry Jones. And that's how the difference. Yeah.
So, So the other thing is, it's just, and I don't want to be repetitive here, but it's such a huge advantage. It really is in the draft to have everyone in sync and be as collaborative as the Eagles are. They're really the blueprint right now. They have achieved that status where they are the team and the organization that other teams are now trying and striving to be, not only just on the field, but off the field. And
what's always surprising about that is how many top-level execs the Eagles have lost in the last 5 to 6 years that have gone to other teams, and then they realize they don't have the support of the structure and they can't do any good there. And they take their shots.
Year one, the Giants, Cleveland, as some Eagles front staff is going over there. The Bears, those are
Bears, Jets,
maybe be figuring things out. We'll see. They seem to be making some strides here lately. The Jets, that's true. Douglas went to the Jets. Yeah. I mean, good point. All right, so moving on. What we're going to discuss today is Matt and I have our own targets. We haven't shared. We never do that before the show. Want to keep it fresh and organic and figure out sometimes we may have the same players, sometimes we may not. This will be interesting because I have a feeling we probably won't have the same players. Not like what was the free agency we went into? We were matched quite a bit, or at least had a lot of the same players, maybe just a little bit out of order. But we'll see. It's an interesting exercise here. So the idea was to get who we think are the Eagles' realistic targets within that 32 slot, or if Howie's to move up realistically in this draft, who they think they could potentially target if some of these guys start to fall. So that's what we're going to talk about. Before we do that, though, just off the top, I want to read off this list because, interestingly, at least for my list, only a couple of guys are on this list that the Eagles actually brought in as part of their 30 guys. You know, each team is able to bring in 30 guys to meet with before the draft. So I'm going to run this list, Matt, and you could tell me afterwards, or I guess, yeah, after I read it, how many of these guys are on your list, and I'll tell you how many are on mine. All right, so here are the Eagles who they have brought in and interviewed prior to the draft. Here we go. Offensive tackle Josh Connerly Jr. out of Oregon. Offensive tackle Anthony Belton out of North Carolina State. Offensive lineman Marcus Mabo out of Purdue. Offensive lineman Jalen Travis out of Ohio State. Running back Jaden Blue out of Texas. Defensive lineman Elijah Robert. I'm probably going too fast, Matt, but
No.
I want to kind of spin through that.
Yeah.
Defensive Elijah Roberts out of SMU. Edge rusher Donovan I don't know how to pronounce his name, Iziriaku out of Boston College. Offensive tackle Charles Grant out of William & Mary. Defensive end Tyler Barron out of Miami. Cornerback Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky. Defensive tackle TJ Sanders out of South Carolina. Cornerback Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. Defensive tackle Shamar Turner out of Texas A&M. Defensive end Aluafemi Oladek out of UCLA. Aladello. I'm probably destroying that name. Defensive tackle Tylik Williams, which means the Eagles will draft that guy. Tylik Williams at Ohio State. Defensive end Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. Tight end Terrence Ferguson out of Oregon. Cornerback Jalen Smith out of Southern Cal, which is interesting. That's USC. That's my team. Offensive lineman Donovan Jackson, Ohio State. That's the 30. Now,
so at least two.
I don't know how updated this is, because I know for a fact that the Eagles, and this was a good source. I think I pulled this off of CBS Sportsline, but I don't see I don't see Myalaka Starks or no,
You're terrible. You're
Malachi.
Yeah.
Malachi Starks. Sorry, man. Hey, if anything, people will watch this show for comedy of how much names I butcher. Malachi Starks. Sorry.
Yeah.
1,000 names and a lot of syllables. I'm my tongue tied a little bit. I know they met with Malachi Starks too. That wasn't on this list. But I know for a fact he was one of the 30 as well. So those are the guys that reported the Eagles have met with. I just wanted to run that list down because out of that list, Matt, out of my list that I have as targets, there's only one on that list.
I may have two from recalling from memory. I'll check it when I read my names and link it out of here. Since my list is on my phone. But there's I think so. Howie, the visits, I think smart teams will use them for smokescreen, and then they'll bury the guy that they really want to interview to find out about the person in between the smokescreen stuff. I have one point.
Also, drafted a lot of guys that they brought in like that.
Yeah, they do. And it clearly shows you where they are feeling they need to go in the draft. And which is funny because that's exactly where all of my notes are going to point us to the exact same position groups that you name are exactly what I have there with one or two others. But there was one point that I wanted to bring up that I did catch a nugget, and because we've talked about Tanner McKee before and how Cleveland traded for the wrong quarterback. And I didn't think about this until it was reported the other day, or I read it online, and they were talking about, what about Kellen Moore and the Saints pulling off a trade to go get Tanner McKee if they don't have much faith in David Carr? And I was like, ooh, that one there's some validity to that. Like, I could see that one going down. Because the Eagles
first round, where are they picking the Saints? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't know exactly. But that sounds like something like if Kellen Moore trusts that quarterback, he might be able to convince the organization to pay a decent price for him. And decent, probably fourth, fifth round. I'd be surprised if they got a fourth, but if they got a fifth round pick and how he can use that pick to go move on somebody else, like that was one intriguing thing where I'm like, that one has some logic behind it. And the Eagles are always looking to give people opportunities, and they would if Tanner had a chance to start, everybody wins on that one. So
I like him as our backup, though. I mean, I agree with you saying if we can get some draft capital for him, that's awesome. And plus, you get to see him start somewhere. Same time, I love having him as a number two.
Yeah, time though they'll find another two. They always do.
Yeah.
So they always backstop that position and make sure they've got somebody that can win games.
Yeah.
So we'll see. That was just out there, and I'm like, ooh, that one, because I was like, nobody knows about Tanner McKee, and I'm like, damn it, Kellen Moore does know about Tanner McKee. So that was just a thought out there. I have.
So before you get started on the list, I have Lindsay here, so I'll let you know, and you might know because you have Lindsay also, but I don't have Anthons.
It's Lindy, not Lindsay. It's Lindy's.
Whatever. Lindsay's. It is Lindy. Yeah, sorry.
Lindy's, yeah. Lindsay. Lindy's.
So anyway, what does Anthon's have as Eagle picking at 32?
Athlon Sports. You're wondering who Athlon has at 32?
Yeah.
They have. Stand by. So yeah, Athlon Sports and Lindy's are my two sources. Let me hold the mock draft.
Because I have Lindy's here, so I'll give the Lindy one.
Yeah, and I didn't pay any attention to
either before I
to their mock draft. Yeah, so let me find their mock draft. There it is. Okay.
So is it?
Kind of. Well, it's a linebacker.
Give me the position. Let me see if I can guess.
It's a linebacker.
A linebacker.
Yep.
Who the heck would that possibly be around that time?
I think it's the top rated linebacker.
It's not the guy out of Georgia, is it?
Not Georgia.
It's not Michael Williams. But
Nope.
they have defensive end / linebacker.
Yeah, I think Williams is going to be gone well before 30.
Yeah, C guy.
Yeah, it's the Alabama linebacker, Jihad Campbell.
Oh, Alabama.
That's who they have for number 32, which I could see him doing that because I have the thought process is the same, and I'll explain my thought process when we get to our picks. But that's who Athlon Sports has is Jihad Campbell, linebacker from Alabama. He looks like a beast.
Yeah, I'm trying to find him on what Lindy thinks about him. Yeah, they got him at the 40th overall player in the draft. So, yeah, I mean, that's possible he could be there.
Yeah, Lindy's has him as the number one inside linebacker.
Yeah. All right, interesting. Okay, so do you want to start or do you want me to start? Just how we're going to do this is we'll do it back and forth. You give me a name, I'll give you a name. No ranking, just guys that we are targeting in an area that we'd like to see the Eagles go after. We think is a viable possibility for the Eagles.
So, by the way, am I still on the camera if I just do this?
And you could say, I predict. You could also say something like, listen, I project this guy because he's not going to be there at 32, but the Eagles might move up 5 slots. You could say something like that too.
Yeah. So when I was looking at, I'm not sure if I'll get into where they can move up or down. I'm going to how to do that, but the groups are basically. I kind of went with like we don't know if trades are going to happen, so I was kind of like, here's a group of guys that I think they can get with probably their first 3 picks, however they maneuver the draft to get them. Right. And groups, I kind of ranked them by position groups. So my needs, I'll talk about that first. I've got 5 numbers here, 5 needs. Number 1 need is defensive tackle. Number 2, offensive tackle. Number 3, linebacker / edge. Number 4, linebacker, true linebacker. And number 5, maybe a wide receiver, special teams, return, slot receiver type tool, right? Because they lost Covey, right? They didn't re-sign Brandon Covey.
Right.
So that's where I'm at. And I've got one of my guys, I might pop out here just for a second. I'll pop right back in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yep. So Darius Alexander, Toledo, Walter Nolan, Ole Miss, and Tyleek Williams, which is one of the guys you named, would be a number 1 pick. And then if we stayed at 32, and then Malachi Starks, if he was there, maybe they go that way. So if Malachi Starks, because he's intriguing, right? So blue chipper Starks, everyone has Starks rated as like one of the top safeties.
I don't think he's gonna be there. I mean, I like him, and I just don't think in this draft. Yeah. And here's why I don't think it's gonna happen. If this was a typical year where there's at least a decent amount of quarterbacks, where there might be a lot of teams moving up to get them, and a guy like a safety that's really good would fall, it's not happening this year. There's nobody trading up for any of these quarterbacks, I don't think.
I can certainly see the Bengals or somebody like that can stand to improve their defense going for a guy like Starks. He's a game changer. Maybe the Bears might trade down a couple spots since they have their quarterback and then grab Starks late. So that's possible. So I had him there though, just because there's been a lot of buzz about Starks.
Yeah, there has. I mean, and they definitely are interested in him. There's no question. They like him a lot. I just don't think, and the reason why I don't have him on my list. Well, do I have him on my list? I don't have him on my list, and that's the only reason is not because the Eagles are not interested, not because it wouldn't fit a need, but because I just don't think, in my opinion, it's a viable option because I see him going by between probably maybe even higher, but I would say he's going to go anywhere between 10 to 15, maybe 17. So for the Eagles to move up that many, I don't think Howie's going to give up that much draft capital to go get him.
So I
Just
like
my take.
Right. So which could happen. So let's focus on the defensive tackles. So I named 3 of them, right? So I named 3 guys that the lowest ranked one I named was Darius Alexander from Toledo. He's number 7 in Athlon Sports, and has him stand by as oh, come on. I need a page turner too.
Alexander, I'm trying to find him also.
Yeah, so number 8, Lindy's has him at 8. Athlon has him at 7.
Okay.
Of course, these guys know more than I do, but there's certain things about him. He passes the eye contest, number 1. Eye test, he's 6'4", 310, age 24, and he's this is what I love. This is what I love to hear. Alexander is a nightmare when it comes to trying to drive him out of the way in the ground game, and double teams rarely do much to help. So if you throw a guy that double teams cannot stop him in a run game next to a Jalen Carter that can do all things, and if I say that the defensive tackles can improve in one area, it would be against that run game because we're not quite sure if Jordan Davis is truly going to fill that role. He's kind of on and off. So I like that. But the other 2 guys, Walter Nolan from Ole Miss, he's another guy that passes the eye test. And they basically have him as a 5-star recruit, and he's a more balanced guy. So he's like pass rush and run stopping. He's ranked number 4 for Athlon Sports, and Tyleik Williams is number 5. And Tyleik Williams also passes the eye test. And these are, when I say eye test for defensive tackle, it doesn't mean like Jordan Davis was pretty large, but he looks just large. He doesn't have much muscular definition going on.
Right.
And these other guys are large, but they've got some guns, underneath it, just like Jalen Carter. Like Carter's,
he's a beast.
He's a beast. He's a load. And Tyleik Williams, Ohio State, he looks like a load. So I like that. And they're 4, 5, and 7 in Athlon Sports, and in Lindy's, or Lindsay's, as some hosts call it.
Well, they have Alexander predicted as a 2nd-round pick, so right up, and obviously they have Williams as a 1.
Yeah, and Nolan. So Walter Nolan is rated the highest with Lindy's.
Yeah.
And Tyleik Williams is 4th, and like I said, 7th or 8th for the guy from Toledo, Alexander. But those are just 3 guys that I picked. Yeah. That defensive tackle position is deep because they've got I can turn pages and pages in these magazines and get to, let's see.
Lindy's great the draft class in A, which I knew going in without even knowing Lindy's because everyone talked about how this is a very stacked defensive tackle draft, which is good. Yeah, Lindy's grades the overall class as an A.
10 defensive tackles ranked to go 2nd round or higher, according to Lindy's. That's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
And let's see.
It would definitely be one of these guys at 32 if the Eagles stay.
Yeah. Athlon has 7 tackles going in before the 2nd round. So that's where I would go first with that pick. What would you go?
All right. Well, first of all, I didn't really break it down necessarily that way. I mean, I did, and I did, and I didn't. I guess there's a way I should say it. I will say this. Michael Williams, I have on my list to be a potential pick right there at either 32 or the Eagles move up a couple to get him.
That's the Georgia defensive lineman?
Yep.
Rush linebacker. He's young. Yeah. He's a very young dude. Like that. He's on my list as like, if things fall our way, I think maybe they would go for him. Yep.
I have The one that I matched you is Nolan. I also have Nolan there. I think Nolan's a guy that could go anywhere between 20 and he can go as high. Well, I don't know, 20 might be too high. I would think he's going to go between like 25 and 32. I think if he's there, the Eagles would probably jump at him. But he could go as high, I think, around around 25, 23, 25 range. He could go as high as that. The defensive tackles, because it is so deep, that is one of the positions I don't think the Eagles will jump up and make a trade. I think they'll just wait for one of these 7 to 10 guys that we know are really good. Many of them we've already named at the defensive tackle spot. I like the guy that you picked, by the way. I was doing up some reading on him, Alexander. He definitely has a lot of tools that you want, so I could see why you like him a lot. So the other guys, and by the way,
I was just going to add, because they're steep there in depth, they can afford to grab a guy that they like a lot and know he's going to be groomed. They don't need him to play right now.
Right.
They might look at somebody who's ranked a little bit lower and say, we could turn this guy into a monster.
Yeah, and I could see them doing that. If one of these guys are really high on, they'll just wait at 32 and grab. Or, here's the other thing I think Howie was probably thinking. It's such a deep defensive tackle draft that they may not expend a first-round pick on one and grab one in the second round.
Yep.
May not be one of these top guys, but maybe an Alexander falls second round.
Yep. And maybe falls into the third round. Like they might be able to snag one of these guys like middle rounds, and then you're like, man, that'd be pretty cool. So go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you with that thought.
So I'll kind of predict who I think the Eagles' top two targets are. One of them is who Lindy's picked as their mock pick, and that is the safety Nick Emmanuel out of South Carolina. They have him falling to the Eagles at 32. I don't know if he's going to fall to the Eagles at 32. But that's a guy that is he's right up there with Malachi. Probably not as good. He's probably just a slightly, he doesn't have all the attributes that Malachi has, but he's very good. That's one guy that Lindy's prediction is there for him.
Yep.
I think that's very good a possibility. The other guy is Nolan, who we already mentioned. And the one guy that I am probably the highest on, and it's also a position of need, is Donovan. Of course, it's a name I can't freaking pronounce. Izuriaku. I don't know if that's right. I think it's probably horribly pronounced. But the defensive end / outside linebacker out of BC. Led the nation. He was a Dick Butkus Award winner for defensive end. Was he projected defensive end or, outside linebacker? Lindy's has him as an outside linebacker. I've heard him as in the defensive end group. Either way, I would like that pick. The guy is huge. I don't know if you've seen his measurables.
No.
But, man, this guy, I'm trying to find him now.
Yeah, I got him. He's ranked in Lindy's as number 53. Don Izuraku.
Yeah, Izuraku, yeah. He's 6'2", 248. Pretty big guy. That's not a tiny linebacker. They have quick hands, high level pass rusher. The Eagles love those guys with the freaking high engines. And he's one guy I think is that if he's there, I could see the Eagles drafting him. May have to move up to get him. Maybe he might be a guy they might have to move up a few slots. Not sure. It all depends on how the draft's falling. The other guy that, and he wasn't on my list, so I'm just going to say this as like a add-on, honorable mention, and it's because the guy that I respect a lot, Mike Maylock.
Yep.
I always find him as a very credible draft evaluator in college. He is high.
Last name is just Mike Mayock.
What's that?
There's no L in his last name. It's just Mike Mayock. You'll get one of the names right tonight. That's right. You're fine. You're fine.
That too. Mike Mayock. Sorry,
Mayock.
Mike, if you're listening. My apologies. He's high on Mike Green out of Marshall. He had a lot of great things to say about this guy. He says he's very explosive, and he thinks that The guy, I guess, has got some kind of rap sheet. I don't know if that's too harsh to say. Apparently, he's like one of those guys that I don't know what the story is, honestly. He just made it sound like there is something questionable about his something character, I guess.
Okay.
So he didn't do anything bad. I'm not saying that. Mike didn't say that either. He just said he's a guy that he might fall because some teams might back off. And he's like, if he's there at 32, he says the Eagles should run to the commissioner with the pick. And so that's, I don't know if he's on your list, Matt, but that's Mike Green out of Marshall, who has actually at number 3 ranked one slot ahead of Donovan.
What position? Edge rusher?
Outside linebacker. But again, outside linebacker / edge guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I wouldn't be disappointed with that. I definitely think like D-line will be addressed with their first pick. Unless somebody falls at a position that like a rated guy. Like you said, they brought in Josh Connolly for Oregon. He's one of my magazines has him ranked number 1 as the tackle. But the tackle group is a B- overall for offense. Yeah. So like
it won't surprise anybody if Eagles go offensive line. They've done that many times, but
they could.
I think they go on defense. I think that's one reason why Lane Johnson came out and said, "Hey, I think I got another 2 or 3 more years to go." So the Eagles know they don't have to push the emergency button and draft that offensive tackle in this draft.
Yep.
So I think I'll hold off for the rest of my names because a lot of these guys are probably player. Well, as I say that, hold on. There's one other guy that I'll mention. I think it would be an absolute steal if he's there. I don't think he'll be there because this is a guy like Malachi who probably would be gone by 20. But if James Pierce, the defensive end out of Tennessee, drops, say he's there still sitting there at 26. I think Howie should very seriously consider moving up.
Would, yeah, I agree with that. I don't think he drops, but sure. If
that's what I mean. He probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, they might make a move on him if he gets the 20, like early 20s. I could see maybe, but 26th, I'm not sure.
Probably not. Yeah, I'm probably wishful thinking there. I had him down there, but he's definitely a guy.
There's always one that free falls right through that first round. So
I think that's really why I put him on there, just like as a kind of lucky fall candidate. And I'm not saying he's going to fall. He probably is going to be gone by 20. But I think I'll hold off from the rest of my names. I named about half my list already. So,
all right. Well, let me kick back to my list.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, offensive tackle. So, number 2 position, and it's not just because of Lane Johnson getting older and having Malata on the other end. The bookends are good. I get that, but they have such a track record of turning tackles into beasts at guards. So like they're on in here. So I think they could be looking at guard traits in the tackle position because it's the tackles that are all the guys that are 6'6" and 320 and mauling in that run game. So I had a guy named Chase Lunt. And who else do I have? Hang on one second. I got Chase Lunt.
Now, this is a guy you expect him to draft maybe with the second pick?
It might be after the second round. So I might jump back into but I had offensive tackle or utility lineman, essentially.
But out of Connecticut?
Connecticut. He's a UConn guy. So there's 2 guys and there's actually 3, but there's 2 of them that I liked what both Athlon and Lindy's had to say about them. And let me just read the size of these dudes. So we're talking offensive tackle.
Well, I got Lindy take on him, so you don't have to worry about going to Lindy. I'll give you the Lindy take.
Yeah. So Lindy's. Oh yeah, that'll work because I'll just go. We'll save some time here. So Chase Lunt, 6'8", 308, 24. Big and athletic, impressive movement skills that allow him to fire off the ball and get into his pass set quickly, using long strides to eat up a ton of ground with his kick slides and to get his landmarks before opposing rushers are on him. Stoutland works with that stuff all the time. And
Yeah.
then I think he can teach. So patient pass protector. As a run blocker, he gets graded as able to get out in the open as a puller and on screen plays, lining up defenders and erasing them in space. But imagine if he doesn't even have to move all that quick because he's already at guard and he's eating up linebackers in space. So that was an intriguing one. And that might be somebody that is like, they get him in the 5th, 6th, 7th round because they always go after a Jordan Mailata, a Prince. Yeah. I forgot what Prince's name was from a couple of years ago. 7th round. King, remember the guy King years ago that ended up becoming a starting tackle with the Chargers, but he got his initial start with Stoutland. I can't remember the guy's name, but these guys are kind of like, if they find like one of those dudes to plug into that line, because they didn't sign a couple of their offensive line. They cut a couple before we had our little preview show about who they're going to sign. And then the other, Ozzy Trapilo.
Before you go on to the next guy,
let
me give you a little take on from Lindy.
Yep.
They say the combination of body control, hand usage, and footwork are NFL ready.
Interesting.
Good.
So here's where Athlon kind of like this. Athlon says he'll be worthy of a day 3 selection on Saturday, but based on long-term potential, his coaching staff will have to exercise some patience as they round out his game. But I'm like, yeah, but Stoutland loves that. Like,
time to do it.
Late in the draft, you give him a couple years while Lane is getting ready to retire over there, and all of a sudden, maybe you got a good right tackle, maybe you got a guard. But the dude was interesting to me.
It's interesting also how the two publications have like cut an inch off his height. They have him at 6'7".
Yeah. I saw one that was way off on one of the players.
6'8". So Lindy's has him an inch shorter for some reason. Poundage is about the same.
It's funny you read the two sources because, like, I've seen weights fluctuate all over the place too. I'm like, how can you be 30 pounds off on the guy's weight? Like, that's not even close. So
they put him in as a 4th rounder, Lindy's. So yeah, I mean,
so Ozzy Trapilo is the other guy, or Trapilo, and he's Boston College. He's also 6'8", 309, age 23, a year younger, and he's got 3 years of starting experience as a right tackle. So same types of tributes there. And they're like, if he can get quicker and more comfortable in space, this guy would be a mauler as a tackle and good pass blocker. And I'm like, those are two guys that, like, if the Eagles are looking at somebody to draft a little bit later and are like, hey, here you go, Geoff, Stoutland University, here's your freshman class, they might take a shot at one of those guys. So that's
Lindy actually says this guy's a early day 3 pick who projects as a swing tackle and a developmental player.
There you go.
So right there, wait.
So I had that there because I think when the Eagles have guys locked up, they're going to take dudes that are less money and they'll develop the line. We've seen them develop the line and be very patient with that.
Yeah.
But at the more skill set type of players, that's when they'll go. If they've just signed a guy, I think they'll sign a cheap guy to back them up because they don't want to pay. Like, they will definitely backfill all the sign big contracts too with the rookies so they can get good players there. Whether they hang on to them in 4 or 5 years, not sure. But they need to get light on those contracts because free agency, you still have to spend a lot of money, even on the guys that are still out there.
I tell you what, it's got to be an offensive lineman's dream to be drafted by the Eagles.
Yeah.
Just because you know you're not going to be a starter right off the bat, but just to know that you're going to go under Stoughton and know that whether you're starting with the Eagles at some point, once the Eagles let you go, you're going to be good enough to be starting somewhere else in the league.
Yep.
You know, so it's almost an automatic.
Yeah. So I'll toss it back to you if you got more to talk about, or I can go to my next spots.
Yeah. Why don't you go? I mean, let me see. I have anyone I want to bring up right now. Well, I'll just say this. Yeah, I'll get this out of the way. I think that depending what happens with Goddard, it looks like they're going to do something with Goddard. It looks like they're either going to release him or they're going to trade him, something like that. Unless Goddard comes back for a much cheaper deal and just be like on a 1 year, kind of prove it. Not that he needs to prove it, but just a 1 year contract just to become a free agent next year rather than being traded to a bad team by the Eagles or released and signed with a bad team. Because Goddard's to the point in his career where he's probably weighing it like, should I just take a pay cut, stay with the Eagles, have a chance to win another Super Bowl? Or do I want to play hardball with the Eagles and have me traded to a team where they're going to suck for like 5 years and I'll retire on a bad team?
Right, and he's been injured so frequently. It's not like he's going to be chasing stats to end up in a record book. So
Eagles have had him on the trading block for the last month,
yeah.
And obviously they're not getting any great offers.
No,
so
been dinged up. I don't know. Like, when's the last year he was playing a full season?
I think it's injury. I think it's salary because they know they got to pay him a lot. And at this point in free agency, teams are focused on the draft right now, and they've spent all their money, a lot of it anyway. So we'll see what happens with Goddard. But either way, I think a tight end is going to be in the makings here and early on, meaning I think within the first 3 rounds, maybe 4 rounds, I think the Eagles will pick a tight end. I didn't really dig deep in tight ends. Maybe you did, and you have some other names. I just threw these 2 guys out here because here's another potential. I don't see it happening, by the way, when I say this. Yep. It's not what I see happening, but I'm throwing these names out there, and they happen to be the best 2 tight ends in the league. I think tight ends have the potential to slip, or at least one of these 2 guys. I think one will be taken within the top 20, maybe it slips. And they are the 2 best ones in the league, and that is Ty Warren at Penn State and Colston Loveland of Michigan. I think it's possible that tight end, one of those guys, might slip. And the Eagles and Howie have always valued the tight end position a lot. So if one of these guys do slip, again, I don't think either one of them are. I think they'll probably both be gone by 25. But it's possible. Even if you get around one guy is around 25, would Howie throw in a couple of 5th round picks or a couple of 4ths next year, or whatever, to move up 4 slots to go and if he's there? Yeah, I do think. So I'm just throwing him out there as a potential end of possible first round pick. Those guys won't last for the Eagles pick in the 2nd round, but I just put him out there as potential.
Yeah,
one of those guys might fall.
Tyler Warren, 104 receptions last year at Penn State.
Yeah. So with that, I'll defer back to you.
Okay. No, that's good because I didn't have a tight end on my spot, but that was a position I was thinking like they could go for it. And then if they like a guy and it's there, then that does spell what they do with Goddard. If nobody falls or they don't get a chance at one that you like, then they maybe re-sign Goddard. So that's where Howie has all options open, which I dig. I think so for me.
By the way, just real quick nugget on tight ends.
Yeah.
Eagles have had 3 tight ends in the last 20 years. So it's a position that they've drafted well, and they haven't had a need to really draft much. So you've got, Brent Selleck to Ertz to Goddard. I mean, that's
Calcaterra came on last season too. So he's, and his strength of his game was pass catching, and he just got the concussion syndrome before he left college. But so we'll see where that goes. So I turn my attention back to defense with the next 2 guys, and this is where I was like, if they get a shot at Williams, like you said, they would maybe try to stab at him if he falls, but I just don't think he's going to fall.
Probably not. I mean, what are you targeting now? 2nd or 3rd round?
I am so kind of like if they get so I'm not really targeting by round. I'm like, these are just the next position group I would try to address.
Okay.
So in this, I had 2 guys, Michael Williams from Georgia, and then I had Jack Sawyer would be. So yeah, it depends on where they move. If they value the defensive end position, and maybe they make a move for Williams in the 1st round. Yep. If they don't get him in the 1st round and they go defensive tackle or some other position, then Jack Sawyer was the other guy that stood out to me from Ohio State. Good character guy. I was watching Path to the Draft, and they did a story about him on NFL Network, and I was like, ooh, that's a guy that would fit right into that Eagles organization. And he's a feel-good story. If you haven't watched him, you could check his story out.
Okay.
But he's a guy that's got some pass rushing ability. He's not like blue chipper, but he seems to me to be a guy that's like, who would I compare him to? Almost not like Jared Allen ended up dominating, but when Jared Allen was drafted, nobody thought much of him compared to.
Wasn't an early pick, wasn't he? Like a 5th rounder or
Right.
something?
Yeah. So a late round draft pick that was just a
No,
right, a work ethic. These guys that bring it, and so Jack Sawyer kind of struck me as that type of guy. Like he loves the game and he's in it. He's fully checked in. He's not a distracted player. He's not in it for the money. He's in it for the love of the game type thing. And you can see that in this.
They say he's very good against the run too, which is one question I have heading in the season for the Eagles.
Yes.
Is defense on the outside, because they got smaller guys. I mean, Smith and Hunt, although Hunt played to run pretty well. Smith has got a lot better. So I'm not saying it's a weakness, but you'd like to have some guys depth-wise that can stop the run on the edge.
Well, what's funny about Nolan Smith is he clearly learned, and that this is where the defensive coaches on the Eagles deserve a lot of credit. It's as if they told him, look, if you wait, you're going to get blocked out of every play.
Yeah.
So you have to hit them like a missile and blow their stuff up before they even get going. And then you saw him do that, and that's when he became a dominant player like this. We've been comparing him to maybe a Javon Curry.
Yeah.
So
That's what he started reminding me of. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jack Sawyer, and what's funny is Michael Williams is in that kind of mold that they already have because he fits this athletic Nolan Smith, J.X. Hunt. So I don't think they'll be too high going after him specifically. I think they might want like a bigger, bulkier, maybe a slower, maybe lesser of an athlete, but somebody that knows football and can stuff things up. So I had Jack Sawyer at the end.
I'm reading up. I don't know anything about Sawyer other than just reading up on him now.
Yep.
And what Lindy's wrote, you would think this guy's going to be like a top 5 pick. Like, I just wonder sometimes when you just read these reports. I mean, this guy, he's like extremely well disciplined, technical run defender, great at shedding blocks, edge setting, hands are powerful and active, generate wins with speed to power. I'm like, extremely smart player. I'm like, what? Is this guy a projected 3rd round pick? What am I missing?
Yep, and he's got big program, Ohio State University.
Yeah. So he's got the pedigree behind him. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, that's a good. I'm gonna keep my eye out for him. These lists for next week because when we have Johnny and especially Evan on, who's like the college guru, you probably want to run some names and just get his thoughts on some of these guys. He might have some more to add on some of these guys. Like, all right, anybody else?
So, and then I've got my, let's see, that was number 3 group. So, and then I had my true linebacker position. So I wrote down, one second. Okay. So I had Nick Martin from Oklahoma State. Now, again, they probably will go Nick Martin if they grab the Alabama linebacker, like the one mock draft had him going to the Alabama guy, number 11.
So this is outside linebacker?
Yeah, so no. Let me find him.
What did you say his name was again?
So if they don't go Jihad Campbell early,
they
might go Nick Martin. Nick Martin, Oklahoma, 6 foot, 220, age 22. And this is what I like about him. According to Athlon, cannonball off the snap. So the high motor guys, like this guy's quick, fast.
Yep.
Plays speed and explosiveness on every play when you watch the film. On every play, speed and explosiveness. So that's why I'm like, yep, that sounds like an Eagle to me. So Nick Martin, Oklahoma State, he's 12th ranked. So a lot of guys might go before him, but that might be one of those middle round picks, 3rd, 4th, 5th round.
Unless I'm missing something, I don't see him on Lindy's at all. Yeah, is he an outside linebacker? Or is he inside?
Athlon has all their linebackers marked together, so I can't tell. But they have them, they've got him as a 7th round pick for Athlon.
Okay, let me just.
And I think that's because it's just Oklahoma State, and but he had. I'm always looking for tackles for losses, right? So
that's not a bad program.
Yeah, no. In 2023, so the reason why he's ranked this low, and here's why I think the Eagles will grab him: injuries, right? He only played in 5 games last year, so he got injured.
So those guys sometimes just naturally fall because they don't have a lot of tape from last year.
Yes, yep.
Mark,
and he's a little bit.
Lindy has him fourth.
Fourth, right? So, because listen to the stats from 2 years ago, 2023, 14 games, 140 tackles, 16 tackles for loss, for a total of 43 yards, 6 sacks, 9 quarterback hurries, and then a fumble forced and a fumble recovery, and then 2 interceptions. So, Mike, he's that was when he was healthy. So
his pro comp, they have him as Duke Riley, who is a pretty decent player for the Dolphins.
Yeah. So somebody late round, but like
definitely see him falling because of the injury concern.
I definitely see him drafting a couple linebackers to get in behind that big bond contract so that they've got some guys on the cheap.
Right. And plus they don't have a lot of depth there. And you got Nakobe who's going to miss probably at least half the season next year.
Yep.
So you only have Trotter and
And even though Dean started off the season well, he's still proving that he's injury prone.
Right.
So he
had such a bad knee injury. I mean, that was a pretty severe knee injury.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to be the same player. We hope he is, but that might be one of those knee injuries that the player comes back, he's just not the same.
Yep.
Possible. All right. Anybody else?
Well, so the last guys on my list were that wide receiver position.
Yep.
Somebody that can just, they don't need one, but if they can get somebody that can add some explosiveness in the return game, wouldn't that be great? So I was looking at guys that are good or were rated high for the return game and might be like a mid-round receiver and then high character. So again, just like the guys that the Eagles like to look at. And I had, where is he? He's the guy that played with Bo Nix in high school, and I just watched the documentary on this cat too. Tez Johnson, he's ranked 15th in Athlon Sports. He's 5'10", 165, so he's a tiny guy. But when he went to Oregon and played with Bo Nix, who was his high school quarterback, so he had one season with Bo Nix. The season he had with Nix was 86 catches, 1,182 yards, 13 yards per catch, 10 TDs. And then without Bo Nix, he had 83 receptions, much less explosive, 898 yards, 10 yards per catch, but 10 TDs again. And he's got some punt return, kick return skills. So I was like, if they're looking for somebody to fill that slot role, I've got Tez Johnson pegged right there. He's
speed is pretty fast.
What was that?
4.41 speed. It's pretty quick.
Yep, 4.41 speed.
They've Tutu Atwell, who's like a little gadget wide receiver guy for the Rams. Tutu Atwell.
Yep.
That's what they compare him to out of Lindy's.
Yep. And then my next two guys are Jimmy Horn Jr. from Colorado.
Yeah, that was the other guy I was looking at. He's even faster than Johnson is.
Yeah, he's fast. And then in case they want a big dude, I have Savion Williams, who wouldn't be a punt return guy, but Savion Williams from TCU. If you look at his biometrics, that dude is a beast. So
Williams, is he a projected late kind of?
He's earlier than Pez, so he's a third round
because of his size.
6'5", 225, and he's only 23 years old.
That's a big dude.
He's a big dude, right? So I'm like, they only have one big dude right now. It's Jay Brown. They got John Wilson, but I'm like, I don't know what they're going to do with him. He seems to not be too.
I can't trust his hands. He just drops too many passes.
Yeah, he doesn't look like a natural athlete, right? He looks like he's always struggling to catch the ball.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm not sure if they're very high on Wilson, but I'm like, but that guy passes the eye test, size and speed, obvious right away. And this guy's,
Find him in here. What's his name again?
Savion Williams.
Williams. Okay, TCU. And you want to draft a TCU wide receiver? Remember the last one we did?
Yeah.
You know, remind you?
Yeah, good point.
I want to stay clear of that program. But no, I see what you mean. 6'4", big guy. Plus, you're not expending a first-round pick on him in front of Justin Jefferson.
Exactly. Yeah. Those are, but I think they'll go to wide. I think they're definitely picking up like the two positions that I thought, okay, I think they're going to grab a receiver, maybe two, and then a linebacker or maybe two. And then I think they're pretty solid. And it might even go a run back as well. So
bingo. That's my next guy. I'm bringing up.
Segue to you for the running back spot.
One of my favorite players in this draft, and it's actually a guy that I have done homework on, and I actually have seen tape, and I actually have done some research, and I highly recommend that maybe before next week you just check him out. Maybe I'll send you a YouTube highlight clip of him.
Okay.
He's got a cool name as well. It's hard to forget this one, but I'm telling you, man, this guy, if he was an Eagle, the fans would absolutely love him because he's basically the next coming of, or at least he reminds me of. Can't say that till he actually proves himself in the NFL. But to me, he is a Mike Allstott clone.
Ooh.
And how cool would it be? Here's a couple of reasons why I think the Eagles might have this guy on their radar. You know how last year they started using fullback, even signed like mid-season, they signed like a big fullback, and they started using the lead block, which the Eagles haven't done with a running back since I can't remember. Andy Reid didn't do it, so it's been a long time. Maybe Chip Kelly did it every once in a while with McCoy. I can't remember. It's rare. The Eagles have like a lead blocker. But this guy can not only do that, and I don't even know if he does that much because he's the lead running back out of Arizona State. His name is Cameron Scatterboo. And I'm telling you, Matt, if you watch this guy's tape, it'll bring a smile from ear to ear on your face because he is a freaking load. He runs hard. He takes on he's like one of those guys where he has the ball and he can't wait to run you over. And I love this guy. So he's a guy that's probably going to be there. Like he's not going to be a first round pick, I don't think. There could be a team that likes him as much as I'm praising him and goes and grabs him late first round or something like that.
Yeah,
I think he could be there because it's a deep. Here's another thing: the second highest or deepest
running backs
position in this draft is running backs.
Yeah. So what's interesting?
Running backs in this draft, and so Scatterboo might be there in the third round, which he would be an absolute freaking steal if he's there, the third or even maybe fourth round because there's so many running backs. There's like 15 good running backs in this draft.
Athlon has them listed as the fourth round, and they have a couple other terms that are synonyms for what you just said. Powerful bruiser between the tackles,
dude. He is
strength, contact balance, solid blend of patience and vision that allows him to avoid negative plays. High motor player who seems to play his best in the critical moments of the game. Who doesn't want that?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm telling you, watch this guy's tape, and you'll be like, if he was ever an Eagle, he would be a fan favorite right off the bat. And I just think the Eagles would use him as a short yardage guy where they don't have to beat up Barkley all the time. Or they do ban the still pending what's going to happen with the tush push. He's another guy that could get you that first down on short and two. He's a perfect guy to hand off to because he's just he's hard to stop. He's just hard to stop. And
TDs.
What's that?
21 TDs last year.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He would be the perfect guy inside the red zone.
Yeah.
The only thing he'd probably steal a lot of Barkley touchdowns, although Barkley just takes it 60 yards anyway.
But 5 receptions. That's a lot for college running back.
Yeah, I mean, he's shown that he can catch the ball, but he's just the guy that's all effort, refuses to go down. Like I just compared him to Mike Allstott. That's who he reminds me of. I don't know if he'll be that good in the pros. I mean, that's a high praise if he's that dominant in the pros. But he reminds me a lot when I watch him, and I'd be excited if the Eagles would draft him. And again, he would be a perfect guy. And I don't think he did much of it in college, but he would be a perfect lead blocker. I mean, if you had that guy in front of lead blocking for Barkley, holy smokes. Because nobody would want to take on his block. I'm telling you, guy's a beast. Yeah. So anyway, that would be my I don't know if I'd call him a sleeper. I do actually have a sleeper. My last guy that I'll name, and then it's the last guy on the list, and this is a total homer pick for me. I'll just say that right out there. And that is, we're talking about quarterback, right? We have, especially with what you're saying, if the Eagles going to unload McKee, potentially, if that does happen, you need another quarterback. So the guy that I like, and I know it's not a good quarterback draft, but I love Kyle McLeod. Or
Say his name right. You can't scroll out, right?
McCord. Kyle McCord, former Ohio State quarterback who played behind C.J. Stroud, ended up transferring to Syracuse, led Syracuse to the bowl game last year. I like how this guy, I was able to watch this guy. I don't watch a lot of college ball, but man, every time I watch this guy play, man, he impressed me. I think he can be at least a good quality backup quarterback in the league. Not sure if he's starter material, but it's a guy that if he's there in the sixth round, why not take a shot? Kyle McLeod, Syracuse quarterback.
Kyle McCord.
McCord, rather. Sorry.
You nail Scatabo.
Wow. I did a lot of work on Scatabo.
Yeah, no, I think definitely if McKee moves, then they're going to be in the market for one of those guys, and he definitely.
Where do they have him ranked? I didn't even check Lindy.
McCord? Athlon has him as 7th.
7? That's not bad.
Yeah, they got him ahead of Will Howard from Ohio State, and they have him behind Indiana quarterback Curtis Work, Quinn Ewers from Texas, Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. Dart's probably going to go in the 2nd round, I think.
Yeah, they're saying he's going to go pretty high here, his name.
But you can definitely see him. He's a perfect guy. Like, here's the funny thing about the difference between Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz.
He's an accurate passer. That's one thing you always look for,
Hurts is not going to get rattled by them drafting a quarterback.
No, definitely not. Well, again, he's not going to be a high pick anyway. He would be, like, where do they even project him? I'm looking at, okay, so Lindy has him at 10. You have yours at 7? You have at 7?
Yeah, 5th round is where Athlon has him going.
6th or 7th round. So, again, he's not, but I'm telling you, he has, I guess it's the arm strength. They say weakness is marginal arm strength. I mean, I'm trying to think. I didn't really throw him. Honestly, I don't think I saw him throw deep too often, but he's accurate and he's smart with the ball.
What you need. Drew Brees had marginal arm strength his entire career, but he would throw the ball.
You could tell, man, because he would wind up and put his entire body into
it.
Yeah.
You just got to throw it on time in the NFL. That's all. If you know when you've got your guy beat, you just chuck it. Yeah.
All right. Well, do you have anybody left on your list?
No, that's it.
I went through all my guys.
It's kind of funny because neither magazine, Lindy's or Athlon, has any kick return specialist categories anymore. So I guess they just pull them out of the receivers and DBs and stuff. So
Eagles did pick up that one return guy. I forget his name, but they did pick up a guy to replace Covey.
Oh yeah,
the Atlanta Falcon guy.
The Falcon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe they don't even go there, but I do think they'll still grab a wide receiver too, just because they've got room to do that, and they usually do.
I really just hope that they give Dotson more of a look this year. I think Dotson proved that he can go to him. I think maybe at the end of the year, Hurts started, trusting him more. He threw him in the Super Bowl. You can't trust a guy more than throwing him in the Super Bowl, and because he catched everything. We talked about many times. Did he drop a ball last year?
No, and he made tough catches.
Right.
Yep. No.
So I think Dotson. Hopefully they, put him into the offense a little bit more, and they may have to do that with no Goddard. If they don't have Goddard, then they may go to Dotson. Maybe that's their plan. That could be part of their plan. Hey, if we do trade Goddard, we're going to just incorporate Dotson more in the offense. Maybe that's their plan.
Could be.
Dotson proved that he can make the plays. He caught everything.
Yeah.
And he didn't throw them that much.
I would be so overall. Players. I don't have anybody else to add as a sleeper or anything. I do think they're going to grab a running back, and I'll be happy with the guy that you just mentioned or anybody else that just complements
out there. That's just one guy that I just think would fit the team because they don't need a guy that's like a burner or something like that. They already have Barkley, but then I was thinking Scott would be perfect because he's a short line guy. You don't have to beat up your Barkley to get those short gains, and he can lead block, and that's what I mean. The Eagles have started to use that lead blocker, and to me, who better than that guy?
Yeah, we'll see. Overall, I do think the Eagles aren't going to trade up in this draft. I think they're going to stay put.
My last question.
Yeah.
You're kind of stealing the thunder. I wanted to ask this. 3 options. Rank them. Eagles trade up, stay put, or move back. How would you rank them in terms of what you think they'll do?
I think number 1 is stay put. Number 2 is move back, and number 3 is trade up.
Straight up. Okay. Interesting. I think I'm going to go the opposite way. I think it's based on what I heard from Howie. I have a feeling Howie's going to trade up, and that's why not a lot. I think he might make a trade up to like anything around the 20. I'll say 26 to 28 range. I guess he'll make it a little move up to grab a guy that falls that they like. So I'm going to rank them 1 that they move up for that reason, 2 that they stay put, and 3 that they move back. That would be
I would say if they do move up, which would just be a surprise to me, then that means an edge rusher fell. That's what I think they would move up for. Otherwise, I think they stay pat.
Yep. They definitely will. I mean, I definitely don't think they'll move back because the Eagles are going to want to have that 5th-year option that you get with that first-round pick. So I don't think the Eagles will move back. I don't see that. That would be surprising to me. Otherwise, if they stay put or move up, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, Howie's always thinking next year too, though.
A ton of picks, though. It's not like he needs more.
Get a second next year for moving down from a bad team that is essentially a first-round pick number 33. He's smart at doing that. Howie does not make deals with teams he knows are going to have winning records. He will make deals with these guys that are suffering because they need the player or they need that pick now. And then he gets them next year because they're going to suck again. And he gets a top of the round pick. And that's another, if Howie wrote a book, that would be like chapter 2, how to manipulate other teams.
Yeah.
He never trades with a team that has good potential to be good.
I'm only laughing because I could just see these GMs so nervous to pick up the phone if they see the Philadelphia area code.
Yeah.
You want me to answer it? It's freaking Howie.
He's got to have some gift of gab.
Papers for the next 5 years for making a bad deal.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. All right.
We're going to cut this short. So, again, stay tuned next week. We'll talk more Eagles draft. It'll be the night before the draft. Next Wednesday, we're going to have Johnny and Evan on here to dive deeper into the Eagles draft. Maybe Matt and I's projections or some of these picks that we have now might change, may not. And we'll ask about some of these guys. So keep your list, Matt, so you can kind of bounce those off, who you like off these guys, and see if they can add and think that they're also if they can just add to the conversation as far as what they think of them. Because they watch college football. A lot of these guys I've never even seen play. The few that I mentioned, I have. And I'm actually going to do some homework too for next week. I'm going to actually watch some of these guys, and I might have might change. I might change a couple guys. Who knows? But anyway, give us your thoughts. That's what the message board is for. So let us know who your top 5 guys are, who you think the Eagles should target. Put it in the comments. Make sure before you do that, you like and subscribe. And we'll see you back next week. Matt, final thoughts, and we'll close this out.
No, it's like a week before Christmas, though. It's like, the draft. Like, it's like I woke up and I'm like, oh yeah, draft's like in a week. Fantastic! Can't wait.
Yep. All right, and we'll be here, like I said, night before the draft, and we'll try to be on. At least I will. If Matt can join us, obviously it'd be nice to have him as well. Give our thoughts on each pick that the Eagles do pick. So definitely first round.
If I'm not on, I'll text you my thoughts.
Yeah. We're gonna do a recap anyway, so we'll have Matt on regardless when the whole thing is all over. But all right, so look forward to that. Again, like, subscribe, and all that good fun stuff, and we'll see you in a week on Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff and Matt. Till then, the flag is flying. Remember, Super Bowl champions, baby. Oh, he's pointing the wrong way.